So now we've got the politics of 2024 in a very serious way impacting policy in Israel and in the Middle East. Good morning. Kicking off a Monday. It is great to be here on KCMO. Be careful on the roads if you're on the early side, which obviously, if you're listening right now, you are. It is foggy. Give yourself an extra 5 minutes and you'll be well on your way. Now, Joe Biden is well on his way to, I believe, electoral defeat coming up in November if things continue on where they are. And he realizes that he has a very slim chance when it comes to pulling off an inside straight to get himself back into the White House for another 4 years. He is catering to a sliver of the population, hoping the broader population isn't really paying attention to his policy on this front, and hoping that it will lead him to a win in November. And in the meantime, if it's not in the best interests of our most important ally in the Middle East, then you know what? So be it. That's just how it's got to be. This came down yesterday from Axios in a scoop that they had saying the Biden administration last week put a hold on shipment of U.S.-made ammunition to Israel. Now, here we are spending tens of billions of dollars on Ukraine. And by the way, unlike many that may see the world the way I do, I'm not as offended by that spending as some people. Like, I see value in stopping Vladimir Putin continuing his invasion into parts of Ukraine. I see value in that, especially when we don't have to risk anything when it comes to our military members themselves. But set that aside. You would think that a guy that is all, rah-rah, stand by the right side, stand by the right people in dangerous parts of the world, would do the same thing for someone who's been an ally for decades now in Israel. But Joe Biden can't do it, according to this report. So it's the first time since the October 7th attacks that the U.S. has stopped a weapon shipment intended for the Israeli military. Now, why is this happening? What's the reason for it? Well, apparently, the Biden administration is very concerned that Israel is going to invade Rafah. What is Rafah? Rafah is a city in the southern part of Gaza, along the Gaza Strip, where more than 1 million displaced Palestinians have been taking shelter. Now, of course, we still don't really know what's going on when it comes to the hostage negotiation. We know that Hamas, operating out of Gaza, still has hundreds of hostages, including a handful of Americans. I mean, no one can name them. We don't talk enough about them because it's not convenient for the media narrative to do that. But they're still very much hostages, 6-7 months later after the fact. And they're trying to get them back into Israel after they were innocently attacked in the worst attack since the Holocaust on the Jewish people back on October 7th of 2023. So now Joe Biden is sitting there, according to this report, and the White House declined comment on this yesterday, to send much-needed military weapons over to Israel right now because of this fear that they will invade Rafah. And ultimately what this is about, it's about politics. It is about trying to appease the far left here in America. In the wake of the protests over the last couple of weeks, of course, we know there's a big Muslim community in parts of Michigan, the Detroit area. That is a swing state for the 2024 election. And it's believed that that is driving the decision-making of this White House. We saw them beat around the bush last week when it came to the protests on college campuses, right? We saw that come out, and for a lot of us, it was a clear wake-up call that when Joe Biden could not immediately come out and condemn violence on these college campuses last week, it was that moment where we realized that Joe Biden was really just playing politics. Joe Biden was not actually interested in standing on the right side of history. The guy was talking about anti-Semitism and then also brought up Islamophobia, which is not at all a part of anything that has been happening over the last week and a half.
There should be no place on any campus, no place in America for anti-Semitism or threats of violence against Jewish students. There is no place for hate speech or violence of any kind, whether it's anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or discrimination against Arab Americans or Palestinian Americans. It's simply wrong. There's no place for racism in America. It's all wrong. It's un-American.
Boy, that sounds a lot like, when you would say 40 years ago, all lives matter, and you were called racist for saying that or something along those lines. That's basically what that was. The movement over the last 2 weeks has been very anti-Semitic. But let's make sure we also cover all our bases and say Islamophobia is wrong. Where have we seen that exactly? En masse over the last 2 weeks. I haven't seen it. But once again, you got to check off the boxes to play politics. So that's what's happening in the White House here over the last couple of days. And then you also have this report that came down. The Gaza Health Ministry cannot provide names for more than 10,000 it claims have died. Now, you've seen these college protests, whether it's here at KU, UMKC, or around the country, refer to 34,000 people who have died during the war between Israel and Hamas, and that's specifically in the Gaza Strip. Well, that number came from the Gaza Ministry of Health. The Gaza Ministry of Health is an arm of the Hamas-run government in Gaza. Why anybody would believe those numbers is beyond me. It's pure propaganda. Well, it came out here in the last couple of days that they can't name and find names for 10,000 people. They claim that they haven't been identified.
Mostly women and children, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Well, that's awfully convenient.
Yeah.
Is it not? So now we sit here and we say, gosh, you're telling me that the Gaza Health Ministry would potentially not be giving accurate numbers to win the war of propaganda in the media, knowing there is a sympathetic far-left movement here in the U.S. that will basically parrot whatever numbers they give them? Whoa, never would have seen that coming.
Talk about a bombshell.
But here we are. How convenient. And that is a number, the 34,000 number, is a number that, by the way, the administration has used as some kind of official number, as if we all have to accept that and run with it, and there's no refuting it. There's no denying it. Nope. You just take that 34,000 number and you run with it. Can't identify 10,000? Yeah. Oh, well. That's too bad. Neither can we, but we're still going to talk about 34,000. Okay. All right. They need a ministry of truth there in Gaza, not a ministry of health, because I don't think they're giving you honest information on either of those. Meantime, the KU protest came to an end over the weekend. That's right. It took till Friday night for these people to realize, I'm kind of tired and hungry, and I'm going to give this whole thing up. It was fun while it lasted. It lasted like 3 days. Here's the official statement from the Students for Justice in Palestine Twitter X account. This was on Friday night at 9 o'clock. They shut things down. They had to go party this past weekend. And here's their excuse. Due to the lack of in-person support, threats of Zionist violence, and an inability to protect encampments from police, we had to close the encampment. You've got to be kidding me. I mean, the lack of in-person support. Okay, so you realize that you had 50, 100 people that were on your side here. Threats of Zionist violence, eye roll. And inability to protect the encampment from police. Yeah, because you were potentially going to be breaking the law there on campus, at which point the police were going to have to do something. But look, even when they cancel their little protest, it's always the victim card. Always is. Threats of violence, and we couldn't protect ourselves from the police, John.
Yeah, due to lack of interest in enforcement of the law.
It's
we
a real
won't be
shame.
doing anything. And the Kentucky Derby's on.
And my iPhone's low on battery, and I'm getting chilly out here. It's going to rain this weekend. I better stay dry. Bunch of losers. KU, they should have been more forceful, but overall, they seem to handle this thing pretty well. Better than most places. We'll say that much. Coming up next, where are we at when it comes to Kansas City? We haven't heard about the 50,000 illegal immigrants, or between 50 and 50,000 that the mayor talked about. Tony's Kansas City has a new report on that I want to share with you coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Man, I got another one here for you. Defund NPR, defund NPR. Another example from our friends at KCUR on a Monday morning. They are the local national Panhandler radio affiliate here in Kansas City. And they just give you new examples every day anytime they're producing content as to why the government should not be funding media in Kansas City or anywhere else in the country. So it's been a couple of weeks since we've gotten any real new information on Kansas City welcoming itself and its doors to illegal immigrants in Denver and New York. Remember, Mayor Lucas indirectly, I don't know if it was on purpose, but broke this news to Bloomberg about 2 weeks ago now, that Kansas City was looking into the idea of bringing in illegal immigrants from Denver and New York in particular to decompress, his words, those situations where, of course, they have been completely overrun. Well, we had the mayor on, obviously, Thursday, the last couple of weeks, as we do each and every week, and we talked to him about that ad nauseum. We didn't really get a lot of answers. Like this, when I said to the mayor, how many people are we talking about here? And he said somewhere between 50 and 50,000. You said the number that you're looking at for these folks, you're saying 50 is the number of people you're looking at, 50. Is that right, or did I misunderstand that?
I said it's more like 50 than 50,000.
Oh,
right?
okay.
I mean,
well, that's a big. Oh no! What does that mean then? 5,000.
Right.
I mean, you got to have a number though if you're going to run an operation like this, right? You got to have a number in mind.
I think that, no. What we are doing in Kansas City, this is why I said it's more like 50, is to say, yeah, we welcome individuals, right?
Okay. So that was, of course, the infamous soundbite from this show a couple of weeks ago. So KCUR puts out a piece yesterday, and the headline reads as follows. Missouri won't let Kansas City be a sanctuary city, but the mayor is welcoming more immigrants. They write here at KCUR, Mayor Lucas said that he is in talks with cities like Denver and New York to bring immigrants who are authorized to work to Kansas City. Despite the uproar from anti-immigration politicians in Jefferson City, that does not mean Kansas City is becoming a sanctuary city. Boy, the propaganda, they laid it on right there out of the gates. Being anti-illegal immigration is not anti-immigration. It does not make you an anti-immigration politician. To say, boy, the policies of the last 3+ years on the border are a total mess. We really don't know and have a good idea for who's coming into the country over the last 3+ years because of the policies of the guy in charge that has led to 10 million people, coming across the southern border, at least based on the estimates. We know that people who have been given work permits have done very bad things, have broken the law extensively in this country. So maybe we need to kind of take a step back, hit the reset button, and realize that we need a better handle on who's who right now in America. And that doesn't make you anti-immigrant at all. You know, I've talked to a lot of people on this show. You've heard from them who have pushed back on these supposed plans from Mayor Lucas, and every single one of them have talked about being pro-immigration, pro-legal immigration, having people who are coming here, loving America, doing it the right way, rah, rah, USA, the red, white, and blue. Every single one of them. But at KCUR, at National Panhandler Radio, they refer to that as being anti-immigration, an anti-immigration politician. And that is just simply not true. But it's nothing new for them because they lie for the most part as part of their daily job. They promote propaganda on a daily basis as part of their job. That's what they do. So in the meantime, you have this big piece, and KCUR, they put together 1,000 words here, and they basically admit that there are not a lot of answers here. All they do write in part is immigrants have a positive impact on their communities through labor and small business, according to J.H. Collum Clark, the director of the Bush Institute Southern Methodist University Economic Growth Initiative. Economic development is a major focus of both Missouri and Kansas City. In the past 5 years, companies have announced $9 billion in investments in the metro area, according to Bloomberg. The Kansas City, Missouri City Council has already set aside $1 million towards housing, training, and language services for immigrants. Research shows that, unsurprisingly, immigrants thrive more when they have help learning English. Yes, I want to help those who have come to America through all legal means learn the English language. I've told this story ad nauseum when stuff like this comes up. My grandfather, when he was here as a young boy, first-generation American from Italy, he would run away from his own mother in the grocery store when she would speak Italian to him. He wanted to be an American. He wanted her to speak English. He was embarrassed when she would not speak English and she would speak Italian. That's the mindset that we want to welcome to all of our immigrants. It makes sense. We are more unified. We are more of a culture and a country together when we are using a uniformed language. That's been proven throughout human history. So I want to help facilitate that. But I want to help facilitate it, as many of us do, for those who have come here through the proper means and proper channels first and foremost. And this notion that, boy, we've got $9 billion in economic development that has been set aside from different companies for the Kansas City Metro. Yep, and people living in shelters in Denver and New York are definitely the ones that those companies are looking to hire here in Kansas City. Are you kidding me? The article then goes on to note, but some members of the city council still have questions. Yeah, like how much money, how many people, what's your number, what's the timeline? KCUR writes it like they've written out all the answers to the questions that regular people have, and that has not happened in this piece by any stretch of the imagination. The way they frame this, and I will break this down on social media on a thread so you can see it there, but this is the biggest piece of garbage propaganda I read in Kansas City media all weekend. And that's saying something, because I read the Star as well. 628, good morning. It is good to be here, back on a Monday morning on KCMO. Now, speaking of Mayor Lucas, he apparently is up for a big job in Washington, D.C., according to a new inside report. We'll tell you what job that is for the mayor next. Many of you always ask me, anytime I'm somewhere and people want to talk about Kansas City, Missouri politics, they say, what is Quinton Lucas angling for? Where is he going? Is he going to the Biden administration? Is he going to get some big appointment there in Washington, D.C.? Well, we actually may finally have a target of what the mayor may end up doing on behalf of the Biden administration. And it comes courtesy of Beltway insiders to Tony'sKansasCity.com. And Tony was on the show on Friday in our Feature Friday 9 o'clock segment, and he was outstanding. If you missed it, it is up on the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can still listen to it. It's there. We had a good chat. This did not come up because he didn't break this until late on Friday night, I believe it was. But the position of HUD Secretary, Housing and Urban Development, is open after Marcia Fudge stepped down from her post, and the White House has been very slow to name a replacement. In fact, Politico is reporting that Joe Biden may not pick anybody until after the election. But Tony's Kansas City says that Beltway insiders are telling him that Mayor Quinton Lucas's name continues to come up in conversations about this coveted cabinet position. So Quinton Lucas, as your next HUD secretary, is potentially in the cards. How about that? Now, the mayor has said that he's insisted that he's planning to finish his term, right? He has insisted that that is something that he wants to do. But if this guy gets tapped as the HUD secretary, you know and I know he's out. You and I both know that he is, not running, he is sprinting to Washington, D.C. if he gets tapped to be HUD secretary. Right now, they have an acting HUD secretary. Her name is Adrienne Todman. But, she's not expected to be the one that's going to ultimately get the gig. Before that, during the Trump years, it was Ben Carson. Ben Carson was the HUD secretary under Donald Trump. Prior to that, during the Obama years, Julian Castro out of Texas was the last HUD secretary under Barack Obama. So it has been a gig that has launched political careers. You go back, Andrew Cuomo was at one point the HUD secretary. He ended up being the governor of New York under Bill Clinton. Jack Kemp was HUD secretary as well under George H.W. Bush. So it's been a job that has led people to impressive political careers. And if Quentin Lucas gets that gig, I promise you he's taking it. Now, what does that mean back here in Kansas City? I don't know what it means long term. But short term, here's what I expect. If the mayor believes he is up for the HUD secretary job, Housing and Urban Development, it explains why he has been very cozy with Joe Biden's policies in recent weeks. Think about what we've talked about here with the mayor in recent weeks. We've talked about why he thinks bailing out student loans is a good idea, despite what the Supreme Court has said. We talked about, and we spent a lot of time on the mayor of Kansas City, advocating for, of course, taking in illegal immigrants from Denver and New York to help decompress the situations in those cities. Are these moves truly, thinking through and working on behalf of the people of Kansas City? Or is it in part about advocating for policy that will cozy the mayor up to the Biden administration? So if he wins a second term, he may end up getting the nod to be your next HUD secretary. HUD Secretary Quentin Lucas in his weekly spot on KCMO. How's that sound? Oh, man. Now, don't know who would be the mayor at that point, and we'll have to figure out how that whole process works if that does end up happening. But just know that as a lot of us have anticipated, the mayor may very well be angling for something in Washington, D.C., and he is expected to be on the short list to be the Secretary for Housing and Urban Development. So just know that there are always angles being played here at City Hall. And Quentin Lucas, by the way, is smart to play this angle because there is no political future for him locally beyond mayor of Kansas City. The Emanuel Cleaver seat in the 5th District of Missouri, they are not buddy-buddy. They can play nice for photo ops, but they are not buddy-buddy. And Emanuel Cleaver, I've talked to multiple people in, his circle, is not going anywhere. He's going to have to wait for his chance to be Cleaver's replacement, and Cleaver is unlikely to give him his blessing. So then you look at what other opportunities are there. Statewide? No way. Now, Quentin Lucas from 2019 could have run statewide. The guy who got elected mayor the first time could have helped Democrats win back statewide elections in Missouri. Much more moderate than he is today. Obviously, very smooth, great talker, likable, has all those qualities you want in politicians. But his policies, especially during COVID, George Floyd, all that, moved to the left. And, he still will call himself a moderate, and he may be on certain issues. But the branding in the wake of COVID and the protests destroyed his political career statewide in Missouri. If COVID and George Floyd don't happen, maybe things are different. But now with the way he's doubling down on Joe Biden's policies, there's no way he could pull up a statewide race. He thought about running against Josh Hawley and then realized that was political suicide and career suicide, so he decided against it. But that's why he is now angling potentially for this post with the Biden administration, and we will see how it all plays out. 913-408-7957 on a Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for being back with us on KCMO Talk Radio. I did see, by the way, I didn't have a big weekend. When you've got a 9-week-old and kid number 3 at home, your weekends are pretty much status quo. Now, we did have family in town. My wife's sisters and brother came to visit the baby. So, we had a good time. But it wasn't anywhere close to the weekend Travis Kelce had. Do you see this guy over the weekend? Travis Kelce shows up at the Kentucky Derby. And, he didn't pull off the look very well. He looked ridiculous in his little top hat. I don't know if you guys saw that, but he looked terrible. And then after that, he flies down to Miami for the F1, the Formula One race that was going on as well. So he's in the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. He then goes to Miami on Sunday afternoon for the Formula One race. I mean, this guy was cooking all weekend. It's almost like Travis Kelce is enjoying the spotlight. I know that's going to shock some of you.
Talk about
but
a
it's almost
bombshell.
like he is.
Last year, Mahomes did the kickoff to the Derby, right?
That's right. That
and then
was
we kind of
last
missed
year.
it a little bit because of the, I don't know
Yes.
what the circumstance
Yes.
was.
Local TV, I guess that would have been Woke 41.
Yeah.
Screwed something up. Shocker, I know. But Mahomes was at the Formula One race as well on Sunday. I saw he was partying with LeBron James and Kevin Durant and some of those guys down there in Miami. And Kelce was at the Derby and then made an appearance at the Formula One race. I don't get the appeal of Formula One. I don't know if I'm missing something here, but NASCAR, at least, the cars are driving really fast. This is just like a bunch of people trying to zigzag through, Metcalf and 135th Street during rush hour.
Yeah, they have to shut down streets. I know they did that in Vegas, too.
It's just nothing about it looks appealing to me at all. But I don't know. Maybe I'm alone. But give me a NASCAR race, and I'm not a big NASCAR fan by any stretch, but I'll take a NASCAR race 10 out of 10 times over this Formula One stuff. I do not understand the appeal of it. But you had two of Kansas City's biggest stars down there in South Florida, and Donald Trump was there as well. So it was a who's who in Miami yesterday for this Formula One race. And how many of these superstars, by the way, could even name the winner? I doubt most could. I can't. I mean, I don't get it. But I guess it's one of those things where you want to be seen, as far as I can tell. Coming up, if you missed it, local business we know is in a pinch, including here in Kansas City. And this Kansas City business that announced on this radio station why they are shutting down and why they are closing their doors. It is a very powerful story. And small business anywhere in the Kansas City area, but specifically in KCMO proper, can relate to at least some of this. We'll tell you who it was and what happened next on KCMO 95.7 FM. This was one of the best conversations on KCMO, and it was late last week on a Friday during the Ray Stevens show. Todd Johnson owns Strips Chicken here in the Kansas City area. And Todd was on Ray's show on Friday. Ray's on from 10 to noon every day here on KCMO. You should check him out if you have not yet. Just stream us at kcmotalkradio.com. And he talked about how he's closing his Waldo location. And there were a few reasons that he decided to close the Waldo location. Obviously, he's had crime issues in and around his restaurant. And this is something that has plagued a lot of small business in Kansas City. But many small businesses are afraid to talk about it. They're afraid to pitch this stuff to the media, because they don't want to make themselves look bad in the eyes of City Hall. I know many people who have said to me, hey, you're spot on with some of the crime for these businesses. And I'm like, okay, come on the show and talk about it. No, I can't do that, man. Well, Todd Johnson of Strips Chicken, to his credit, is willing to come on these airwaves, as he did with Ray last week, and talk about some of the reasons that he's closing the Waldo location. And the reasons are completely understandable. Here he was last week.
But my insurance was at Waldo around $9,000 a year leading up to last year in June 3rd, when my renewal came up, and it jumped to $16,000.
Whoa.
And I'm asking my insurance agent, I'm like, what's going on? He's like, well, there's so much crime, sorry, but, there's a lot of crime in that area. So we go by, zip code and stuff. And so I was freaked out, but, on top of everything else, but, we renewed the insurance and everything was good. This year, I just got a notice last week that as of June 3rd of this year, it's going up to $22,000, more than double what it was just 2 years ago for the same insurance on the same building sitting in Waldo. My other locations, I realize the insurance is going up, that they're going up 10 to 15%. No big deal. I've looked just in the last week, I've looked at other agents, and they won't even cover. Two different companies won't even write insurance on the Missouri side in that area. So that was one thing of the four that was like making me think, what the hell am I doing?
Right. Yeah, throwing good money after bad.
So that was Todd Johnson, owner of Strips Chicken, on Ray Stevens' show last week talking about one of the reasons he's shutting down the Waldo location. Now, we've all experienced insurance hikes. Car insurance is skyrocketing. Homeowners insurance is up. Insurance across the board is increased, right? But when you talk about a guy that's gone from $9,000 to $16,000 to now north of $20,000 in a couple of years for his restaurant that sells chicken, that is unsustainable. And when part of it is because these insurance companies are just looking at your zip code and seeing an increase in crime, and they're like, yeah, we don't love this investment for us, that should make you upset if you're a Kansas City, Missouri resident, even if you're not in Waldo. That should make you upset on behalf of every small business that's trying to get ahead in your neighborhood in Kansas City. And I guarantee you we could find many small business owners this morning who have dealt with the same kind of issues. And then when Todd Johnson was talking about why he's shutting down that Waldo location, you talk about some of the bad interactions that have been taking place, where you've got homeless and vagrants and the mentally unstable just roaming around the streets. We know the homeless crisis has skyrocketed in recent years in Kansas City, Missouri, across the board. And these are the kinds of things that now small businesses have to deal with on a far too regular basis.
Right. Last Thursday, in one day, we had a lady run into our dining room and screaming, and some guy was chasing her, had previously beat her up or whatever, and so they had my staff lock the doors, and then we had the police there, so a big ordeal with that. Then later that afternoon, another, elderly guy comes in, orders some food from the front counter. My gal that does deliveries between my other locations was in there. He proceeds, after she places the order at the front counter, to tell him how he's going to rape her, how he wants to rape her, and how he's going to do it, and all this other stuff. They freaked out, kicked him out of the building. So that was last week. And actually, in the result of that, and her being traumatized, even though she doesn't really work there regularly, she just was delivering, I'm like, okay, enough is enough. Done. So I'd actually had already lined up leading up to this for us to be closing. May 25th was going to be our date. But I hadn't actually told anybody. I was scheduling, signing people and stuff, and hadn't broke it to my staff yet. I was going to give them a week or two notice. But anyway, on let's see, it was on the day before yesterday. So it would have been Wednesday.
So that was Todd Johnson telling the story about this awful interaction that one of his employees had in the last week or so that ultimately led him to say, I was going to shut this Waldo location down in late May, but screw it, I'm shutting early. And how can you blame the guy? And he goes on to tell another story about how, basically he had people doing drugs in his bathroom, and his employees understandably didn't want to start cleaning up the drugs because who knows if it was laced with fentanyl. And he's like, this is nuts. My insurance is going up 2.5 times. I got my employees, getting threatened. And then I'm asking my employees to clean drugs out of the bathroom. This is not a good business proposition for me here. And he's elected to shut down his business. How many other small business owners have decided to do that here in recent months that do not want to talk to media, that don't want to have their names out there, like Todd Johnson, who is brave enough to do that with Strips Chicken? And he's got other locations, by the way, so, God willing, he's going to be okay. But this is something that is impacting people across the city. And for some to think the answer here is, what we need? We could use 50,000 people from Denver and New York. That's what this town needs right now. Gosh, that's exactly what we're missing. Said nobody ever with common sense who's running a business in this town. But it is the approach of leadership right now. And until we clean up some of this stuff, some of these stories that you're only going to hear here on KCMO Talk Radio, because TV news doesn't want to tell that story. They don't have any interest in telling that story, but we will. And we will continue to do that here on KCMO Talk Radio. Right after the news, it's amazing how national media found the name of this Ole Miss kid who they claim was being racist on the college campus last week during the anti-Israel protests, but they can't tell you anything about the other people involved. We've got the details next. It's amazing how quickly they got this guy's name. It is. Happy Monday. Thanks for kicking off your week with us here on KCMO 95.7 FM. J.P. Staples. If you Google that name, you will find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories about this kid. He goes to Ole Miss, and there is a 1-second clip of him that has gone viral from Ole Miss last week when he was part of a counter-protest to the anti-Israel protests that were taking place on that campus. If you haven't seen it, he's out there at Ole Miss with a bunch of fraternity brothers. And there is a large black woman who is approaching them on behalf of the anti-Israel protesters. And she is walking towards this group of fraternity guys. And these fraternity guys are like, chanting, rah, rah, USA. They're on the other side of this anti-Israel protest. And this student, J.P. Staples, who has had his name and image plastered all over the news, all over the internet, appears to possibly make kind of like a ooh, ooh noise towards this larger black woman. And the insinuation in the wake of that has been he was basically doing a monkey chant at a large black woman. Therefore, that is racist. And, he is now seen all over the internet. His face, his name, he's apparently getting kicked out of his fraternity. Ole Miss has opened a conduct investigation into this incident. All that has taken place, and you can Google his name, and you'll see all these different stories. Now, I would say this. First off, it's telling to me how the people outraged over the Ole Miss student potentially making a monkey noise have said nothing about all the other protests that have happened around the country, the From the River to the Sea chants. At Northeastern University in Boston, there was actually a chance of kill the Jews. I mean, hate is completely tolerated and excused by vast swaths of the media, depending on which group is being hated. But now we have this 1-second clip of this kid who may make a monkey noise. I don't know. I mean, it's 1 second. He's in the corner of the video. And I don't know if he's hooting and hollering or if he's making a monkey noise. I don't know. I mean, if he's making a monkey noise, it's obviously, and if he is doing it with racial intent, obviously that is wildly inappropriate. And there should at least be some kind of conversation with the young man to say, what are you doing? That's not how you treat people. Like, I'm fine with that. This is what it sounded like, by the way. You got to see the video for yourself, but here's what it sounded like. You can kind of hear it at the end, the woo, 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 woo. It's like, is he just doing his best Ric Flair? Woo! Is he doing the monkey? I don't know. But here you have one kid the media has zeroed in on at Ole Miss, who's now being investigated, kicked out of the fraternity, and his life is upended. And I'm not defending what he did, if that is what he did. And I'm not convinced that's what he did. But if it is, it's obviously inexcusable. But you have had hundreds, if not thousands, of bad actors, antagonists, people chanting kill the Jews on some of these college campuses like Northeastern. That has been reported. From the River to the Sea here at KU. And you don't know who any of these people are. You can't name them. The media has not done anything to try to tell you who they are. They have not done any investigations. But one kid in a 1-second clip may make a monkey noise. And boy, he's plastered all over the internet. Ask yourself why that might be. It's not about having sympathy for J.P. Staples necessarily. It is more about how the media picks and chooses who they want to cover, what they want to cover, and what they want to investigate. They don't have any interest in investigating who's behind these carefully crafted and coordinated protests on some of the most elite university campuses around the country. They don't want to do that. They wouldn't out some of the people leading these chants against the Jewish people. They wouldn't want to do that. They'll happily let them hide behind their face diapers and, move on with their day. But then J.P. Staples, oh, man, he is going to get dragged through the mud. He's probably going to be on the nightly news tonight, John.
Oh, exactly. This is a deal where they're silent on the blatant racism.
Yes.
Then when they find something, somebody spills their milk here.
Yeah,
right?
That's exactly right.
What was the kid there in Kentucky, Nicholas?
Sandman.
Yeah, something like that. The kid just stands there and just kind of smiles while he's taking crap from somebody, and they're like, "Oh, he's smug racist."
Yes, that's right, Nicholas. I forgot about that kid who got a huge settlement.
There's something else going on, but you want to deflect, and you'll focus on any minute thing you can find.
And that's exactly what the outrage mob does. I'm not convinced he really did make these noises that the media is claiming he's making. But you've got NBC News all over this, Time Magazine writing about this. Ole Miss student kicked out of fraternity after video caught racist gestures towards protester. NBC News writing here, Ole Miss opens conduct investigation following protest confrontation. University of Mississippi's chancellor said he was aware of offensive statements as well as actions that were hostile and conveyed racist overtones in a obviously 1-second clip. Boy, these university presidents, even at places like Ole Miss, they are very quick to make statements on things like that. But have hundreds of kids on campus chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Free speech or something, right?
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah. Well, who, me?
Right.
Am I the president of this place?
We're out of town.
They are more than willing to deflect. They are more than willing to point fingers, and they are more than willing to let this thing die down when it suits whatever their agenda is. But the minute they feel like they're getting heat, the media wants to latch on to something that, of course, overrides the broad-based anti-Semitism that is happening on these college campuses. And suddenly, boy, they got themselves a statement. They're happy to talk to the media. It's fascinating how that works, but it's also wildly predictable when you think about who these people are and where their allegiances lie. The double standard is on full display. 2 weeks of vehement anti-Israel protests. You can't name any of these people. No one really knows who they are. No one knows where their funding's coming from. But one kid may make a monkey noise at a fellow student, and boy, you would have a hard time not finding his name on the internet. 913-408-7957. Walter's in Spring Hill. Before the break, go ahead, Walter. You're on KCMO.
Hey, I think this kid needs to find a good lawyer, and just like Nicholas Sandman, he needs to get paid. Because if the media is going to call him out like that and put his life in danger, they need to suffer the consequences. And that's the only way that these media outlets are going to learn, once you sue the crap out of them and sue them out of existence for doing this kind of crap.
It's tough, Walter, and we've seen this before. It's very tough, but I'm not opposed to it. Based on how willy-nilly the media has been dealing with people and using people, just innocent people, by the way, to fit their preferred narrative. So I woke up on Saturday morning to this news, this report. I don't know if it came down Friday night or if it dropped on Saturday morning here locally. But Quick Trip and Casey's better watch out, all right? Because Buc-ee's is eyeing a location here in the Kansas City area. Now, have either of you guys been to a Buc-ee's before down there in Texas?
No,
you have not. Okay.
I've heard great things about it, but I've never been.
All right. Well, I'm telling you guys, it's going to change your life. If we get a Buc-ee's up here in the Kansas City area, we're going to pop your Buc-ee's cherry, and your life's never going to be the same. I promise you that.
I've heard there's beaver nuggets.
Oh, man.
Something like that?
You're just scraping the surface there, my man. Okay? So Buc-ee's expanded into Missouri late last year. They have the location down in Springfield now that opened up in December. I've not gotten down to Springfield since then, but I may have to go down to Table Rock just to stop at the Buc-ee's on the way, John. What are you laughing at?
Well, I'm an older person, so I've lived long enough to see all kinds of things. And so these Buc-ee's, as I've read about them, they have like everything. It was called like a mini Target or something.
Yes, correct, yes.
And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, a gas station that sells everything, and yet we lose chain stores like Montgomery Ward's and Penny's and Sears. All they had to do was start serving breakfast at these places.
And giving you gas pumps.
And some gas pumps. I'm like, the business models are crazy now. It's like you could stop at Buc-ee's and apparently spend 2 hours there.
Yeah, well, exactly right. They got decor, they got T-shirts, candy, snacks, chips, gum, drinks, whatever you need when you're on the road. Buc-ee's has it for you. But here's the best part of Buc-ee's. The best part of Buc-ee's is, yes, they have hundreds of gas pumps. They're looking at a 57-acre property just off of I-70 and 435 by the Speedway.
Oh, okay. More Star Bonds.
I don't know. God willing, the Star Buns are not involved with the Buc-ee's. Just build the damn Buc-ee's, okay?
Yeah, right.
Kansas City will support the Buc-ee's. It should pay for itself. So you've got, hundreds of gas pumps. The bathrooms are immaculate. How many times do you sit there and you're on a road trip, you stop for gas, and you're like, oh, my goodness, the bathroom. The bathroom, oh, man, I wouldn't go back in there if I had to. We should have stopped somewhere else. I have never been. I mean, they are better bathrooms than your five-star restaurants. That's how impressive they are. They pride themselves on the cleanliness of their toilets. It's unbelievable. And you combine that with the food, in particular the breakfast burritos, and your life is going to change. I'm telling you. I mean, I love Quick Trip, but your life will change if we get this Buc-ee's here and we're going to make a road trip. I will do a remote from this Buc-ee's. I'll do a remote from the Buc-ee's stalls. That's how clean they are. I mean, I'll be in there in the bathroom. I'll do the show. I'll do this entire show from the stall. It'll be a little echoey, but I promise you I will do it just to prove to you how pristine these are.
We need Dennis to soundproof that thing.
Yeah, we can get the engineering gurus on it first just to make sure, we can pull it off. But I'm telling you, you will be a changed person after you visit this Buc-ee's if we get this thing in KCK. And I am rooting for it. I want to see a Buc-ee's in the Legends more than I want to see the Royals or the Chiefs out there. And it's not even close. Coffee's good. Breakfast is fantastic. I've been to one, and it was 2017 when I went out to Texas for a UT Baylor football game. And we made the drive from Austin to Waco, stopped at the Buc-ee's in between, and I've been dying to get back to a Buc-ee's ever since.
Were you late to the game?
No. Was not late to the game. Actually bumped into Sam Ellinger's parents. If you are a college football fan, you'll remember him from when he was the quarterback of the Texas Longhorns at the Buc-ee's. So it's always got a soft spot in my heart. But they've got everything that you need. And if you're still a fan of Casey's Pizza, if I haven't shamed you out of that yet, once again, you're going to get some real food at Buc-ee's. I will knock that out of your system real fast.
Oh, well, as soon as this thing opens, then there's no need to go up to the airport to eat.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, man, that is so true. But keep an eye on this, and if we do get this Buc-ee's, don't know when. There's no timeline on it just yet. It just was announced here in the last couple of days. We will be all over it. I will get a sponsor, hopefully Buc-ee's, to give you the daily or the weekly Buc-ee's update, because I'll be counting it down. Just like we counted down Rex Archer's retirement as the KCMO health director, the next countdown might have to be to the Buc-ee's opening in KCK. That's how excited I am about this thing potentially coming to Kansas City on a Monday morning.
He's hanging out there, I'd say.
Rex Archer could very well be hanging out there. He could be, in which case that'll bring it down a notch or two. But in the meantime, if he's there, a lot of food. A lot of food for old Rex.
Boy.
Yeah.
I love Thanksgiving.
Do they have turkey legs as well as beaver nuggets?
Great question. Rex is a dark meat guy. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not sure what their dark versus white meat selection is, but we'll find that out for old sexy Rexy Archer, the former KCMO health director.